And welcome. I just want to thank you all, and I know some of you that are regulars, we flipped the room. They had a little challenge on moving tables for us today, so we are up at this end and not down at that end. I know like people like, what? But change is always good. So I'm Bobby Spiegel. I'm the president and CEO for the Corona Chamber. I want to welcome you to our regular meeting. This happens on the even months, so every other month we have a legislative action committee meeting. We invite at least one special guest speaker to share, and then we'll also hear from our representatives that are assigned to our different elected officials, and they'll have an opportunity to share. In just a moment, we're going to do self-introductions, but I do want to start with the Pledge of Allegiance as well. I'm going to ask our sponsor of today, Barb from Vulcan, to lead us in the pledge, and the flag is in the back. Barb?
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Legislative policy is important to all of us, so I'm happy to see so many faces in the room. Let's start the pledge. Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Barb, would you go ahead
Sure. I encourage everyone who's attending to be a sponsor of one of these events. Excuse me. Again, great policy. It touches every business in Corona, so I strongly encourage you to sponsor, bring your coworkers. Everybody needs to know what's going on locally and also at the state level. On the federal level, the Corona Chamber is sponsoring their annual DC fly-in, which is going to be in September. If anyone is interested, I highly recommend attending that as well. The Chamber puts on a really great trip. It's fun, it's educational, informative, so I encourage all of you to contact Bobby and sign up for that event.
Awesome, thank you. And let's give a round of applause to Vulcan for being the sponsor. So I want to introduce Jeff properly and make sure, because he's going to run the rest of the meeting and take care of things. But Jeff is a former state assembly member. It's not every chamber that has the opportunity to have someone like him that is, I don't know if it's because he loves us or he just, even with caller ID, answers my calls, so that's pretty impressive. But Jeff has volunteered to chair this committee, and I can't think of anyone better to handle this, because the wackos that we sometimes have representing us, and please guys that are here, I don't mean any harm there, but I don't know what they think up there. But I know that when Jeff was up at the state level, he was able to talk on both sides of the aisle. He was able to kind of express to them, before you put this into law, let's look and see how that's going to impact a business. Let's look at how it's going to impact lives. In the new business news that we've got, there's an article on the minimum wage. And, it's great that everyone's getting raises, but now some of those people have been kicked out of the programs that the state and the federal government has put in, because now they're making too much money. So the raises that they got is actually a loss for them. So common sense of what I call Jeff. I know that his campaign was he'd take out a paintbrush and create a new lane on the 91 freeway. There are so many things that have positive impacts within this region because of this man here. He's got a successful insurance business with farmers. He's been doing that for a number of years. He's got a wonderful wife, a couple of beautiful daughters, and a grandbaby. And I got to tell you, he's just a great, great guy. Ladies and gentlemen, the chairman of our legislative action, the Honorable Jeff Miller.
Can I quit? Can I step down?
I think there's a slogan of 4 more years.
You missed my, I don't think so. And you missed my dog, Sadie the Basset Hound. She got sprayed by a skunk this week. Long story, but if you're interested afterwards, see me. Thank you, Barb and Vulcan Materials, for all your sponsorships, for all the things that we do. It's very much appreciated. Just going to give a quick brief update on what this committee does. Some of you that have been here before have heard this over and over again, but Our committee is called the Legislative Action Committee. We work closely in tandem with our consultant, Jeff Gibson, who I'm going to introduce in a minute to give us a quick update on what the heck is going on in Sacramento. And every year we take opportunities to weigh in on legislation that may or may help or may not help you create jobs. And so there's a number of different bills that we track, and we've done it in different sectors. Last year was our healthcare roundtable we did, where we tracked SB 525. We played an active role in that. We also, this year we got involved in the restaurant single-use styrofoam ban, which would have prevented restaurants from using styrofoam products to any plastics for takeout. And we heard from a number of our restaurant members, and we actively engaged, and we helped get that bill stalled in committee. So we are nonpartisan. We don't take positions based on political parties. We take positions based on how bills and how the work that our elected officials do impact our business community. And sometimes that's good, as you've heard in the past, and many times it's bad. So that's what we do in a nutshell. So Jeff Gibson owns Occidental Communications Group, and for 40 years now, 35? 30. I've been doing this insurance 39, so I lose track. Jeff has worked in areas of housing and transportation, environmental issues, and a variety of different issues up and down the state. He was the author of Jessica's Law back in 2006, which he may have a story about Mr. Benoit. Yeah. And I'll just give Jeff Gibson for a quick update.
Well, thank you. So since we've last been here, the state has admitted that the state budget deficit is at $73 billion. When we were in Sacramento for our Sacramento Summit, we heard a speech from the governor where he said anyone who says that the state is more than $22 billion in debt is a liar. And then literally the next morning, he held a press conference not 200 yards from where he had said that, and said, well, it's 73 billion. So I'll let him define himself based on his own words. The 22 billion that he was talking about were actually $22 billion in state expenditures in this budget year that there is no funding for, but the funds have been cut. The checks have already been cut. And so he's gone to the extent, the state currently is going to the extent of calling back $2.9 billion worth of highway funds for projects that have not only been greenlit, but have been entitled. They actually have people in the field, and 2.9 billion of those dollars are actually being recalled to the point where there are state employees calling banks and saying those funds need to be returned to us. On SB 525, which we've done a lot of work with this year, you may remember it, not by its bill name, but what it did, essentially as of 2026, was going to increase the minimum wage for almost anyone involved in the provision of healthcare. So those are home healthcare workers. Those are people that you wouldn't normally consider are providing healthcare, but may be providing support services to people that provide healthcare. That was going to go up to $25 an hour. The governor, at the time he signed the bill, it was the last bill that was signed, to raucous applause on both floors of the state legislature. When at the time he signed the bill, he said he would find the $4 billion hit for year one that it would do to the state budget. On June 1st, that was supposed to take effect, as some of our friends in the back have talked to. There was an emergency bill that was passed suspending the SB 525 for state workers. So, and there's a new piece of legislation working its way through that needs to be passed by July 1st that would now create a dual system of minimum wage. So if you work for the state or anyone who contracts with the state, you would be immune to any future increases in the minimum wage. If you don't work for the state or you don't contract with the state, then you would fall under minimum wage categories. In other words, In and Out right now is trying to find its way to contract with the state. It's a joke. Exactly. On that note, which also passed last year, which was the $20 minimum wage for workers at restaurants that share branding with more than 50 other restaurants in the state of California. Workers within that space represented about 150,000 workers at the start of the year. When the $20 minimum wage started to be phased in, it was required by April 1st. Since April 1st, 10,000 of those workers have lost their jobs, and another 10,000 have opted out of returning to those jobs because everyone is now working minimum wage, or working minimum numbers of hours to avoid the minimum wage law. So that's the second theme that's hitting Sacramento quite a lot on the employment services front, is that with the brave new world that the state is enforcing on minimum wage, you're actually seeing California be one of the few states since 2019 not to add a single new job. And so we're getting down, I think there might be 7 other states that haven't added a single new job since the start of lockdown, which is now well over 4 years away. So everyone else has been able to figure out how to grow their economy over the last 4 years. We have not in the state of California. So when you have a $60 billion forward-looking deficit, you have $22 billion on your credit cards coming due each and every month. You start to look at different things like the bill that was going to eliminate plastics, the eliminate anything that's a single use in a restaurant for any purpose, focused on, or make the restaurant responsible. So they could give you, this was the original argument of the bill was they could give you single-use plastics, like a plastic container or a bag or something like that, but at least 3 out of 4 times that a restaurant would do that, they would have to sign a legal document showing that they knew precisely how that container or those forks or knives or bags or cups were recycled. Now that is a higher standard than the state imposes on itself for receiving back your 10 cents a bottle or whatever you have, because as we now know, less than 2% of plastics in the state of California are recycled. There's about a 65 to 70% 65 to 75% of the things that you pay for at the store and you pay a recycling fee. Those recycling fees, about 75% of the time, are cashed in. So somebody's cashing those in. But because there is absolutely no market for recyclable plastics anywhere in the country, they are going to the landfill. And so in terms of what the governor has laid out and the legislature have laid out on single-use plastics, the standard that was proposed in the legislation when we got started on the legislation, and there were about 8 people in this room and within the chamber that participated in defeating it, the standard would be higher. So it wouldn't be that they actually tossed it into a receptacle. It would be that you would be able to show that no, indeed, it had been broken down, and here's the bag full of number 2 plastic pellets. I mean, it was a very stringent standard that the state itself doesn't hold itself to. So that was one of the ways that we started. But as of right now, the California Chamber of Commerce, which we work very closely with on a number of bills, had about 12 employment-based bills that were classified as job killers. As of today, 8 of those are already dead. And that is the effect of what we really have been in since March of 2020, which is a recession in this state, as measured by employment. But in terms of the revenue outlook and the deficit, along with the lack of job growth coming out of the minimum wage raises of the last 3 months. So in any case, so that's where we're getting a lot of traction this year. Unfortunately, when you have challenges like this, you can get some traction because there just literally is not enough money to pay for all the progressive things that the state wants to do. So now, on a high note, story about Senator John Benoit. Senator John Benoit was the first person to officially endorse Jessica.
Ben's dad.
Yes, Ben's dad was the first, and former supervisor was the first person. So I asked, when I drafted the first measure, in its first form, I called the mayor of Corona at the time, Jeff Miller, and said, I can't tell you why we're going to Sacramento, but we need to go to Sacramento tomorrow. I need you on a plane with me. And we started our meetings, and the third person we met with was Senator Benoit and his staff, and he endorsed it immediately. So he was the first statewide chair that we had for Jessica's But I'm open to any questions that you may have. Yes?
You clarify, it sounded like when you were speaking about the fast food minimum wage, they worked under a certain number of hours, they might not qualify for that wage?
No, you do still qualify for the wage. It's the way that you manage through that. So Rubio's has managed through that, and Lay's Pizza has managed through that by removing their business domicile from California. So the inventor of the fish taco has left California and dropped 36 of his restaurants in California, including the number one location for him, which was in Tustin, so he could be underneath the 50. Blaze Pizza has removed about 1,500 jobs from their chain, eliminated franchisees, and taken their headquarters to Tennessee to get out of that. But you're seeing that in large and small ways. Obviously, it's almost impossible now to find someone who would work in any restaurant for less than that, because just the way the labor market works. So it's interesting to note that when the negotiation began, it was over $15 per hour. And when the initial bill passed, the promise was that it wouldn't be over $15 an hour. And by the time it passed, it was 20, the champ was 20, 20, 20, 20, 20. So, in any case. But we've had some major announcements both today and earlier this week on the recriminalization of fentanyl. If anybody had any questions on that, or the poison pills that the legislature is imposing, but I'm happy to discuss whatever issues you guys have. Yes?
I have a question about the exit tax. Is that a pending? Are they challenging it? How does that help our people move to California if they know there's an exit tax?
So the question was about exit taxes, and generally those are, the state has tried and actually has lost Supreme Court decisions on this. It's called a unitary, it's basically a unitary tax. So the idea is that if you have any sort of business domicile or doing anything within the state of California, that you are a singular corporation, and that you can then, if you make money in Baltimore or Texas, some other place, that you still owe money to the state of California. It's too big of a target for someone in the legislature to not try and come up with a different way of doing that. There are a number of different legal constraints. So it sneaks up in a number of ways, either through personal income tax, and then you would have to file something with the Franchise Tax Board, where you're saying, no, I didn't earn that income here, I was only in the state for this number of days. The idea is essentially to make it so difficult for you that you just ultimately give up and send some sort of money. So something similar happened to me. There was a request for a payment, and it ended up that I sent in the payment and I ended up getting $200 back in a refund on top of the payment. So after going through about 6 months of back and forth with my tax team saying, no, the money isn't owed, and we kept after it, and they ended up having to put $200 on the tab as well. But most people don't. And there's in budget negotiations, and Jeff can back this up, the legislature will, especially when it's under fire like this, do things that it knows are specifically illegal. And Willie Brown once put an extra tax on cars that weren't bought in California initially, even though we all knew that if you buy a car in the United States, it has to be able to be driven in California. So under the idea of the early 70s, which was you could buy a car in Nevada and have it in California, and it would have different smog emissions or things, those days are largely gone. But the state did that anyway, knowing that it would take about 5 years to get through the state courts, and then it would be kicked over to the federal courts, and that each year the state would be collecting about $700 million, and that no one would be keeping their receipts. And sure enough, after the state lost that case in federal court, and the federal court was not happy to hear it. I mean, these long, very, very difficult decisions to read. But sure enough, the state had raised about $8 billion illegally, and only about $80 million worth of people that were so angry about it that they had the receipts to get their. So I mean, that's basically, that's not a secret. It's unfortunate we work to solve that, but that's one of the things we do. Yes, you.
Jeff, what's going on with the inheritance tax in California now? I know that they were gonna try and rebut some of the bills that had passed.
Mm-hmm.
And then there were new ones. Is there new ones going through right now for the inheritance tax?
So it might be specific to an inheritance tax, but the governor, on the same speech that he gave to us, guaranteed that he would not raise a single tax in balancing the budget, and that he would cut almost no program. But what he did do is and a lot of this hits small businesses and family corporations, is he basically eliminated it, or he's proposing eliminating almost every single write-off that you could have. And so that would be $18 billion. It would be a net increase in $18 billion in tax hikes. And when people talk about loopholes, what you have to keep in mind is those aren't loopholes. Those aren't drafting errors. Those are a part of a very carefully, Ben knows, Jeff knows, those are very carefully negotiated, and the whole package is based upon what will truly be taxed and what truly won't be taxed. And so when somebody comes and says, oh, you're getting all these loopholes and we didn't see that coming. No. They knew precisely that was going to work. And they put those aside so that later, if you need extra revenue, you just have to eliminate a loophole, and you can get through your public relations cycle by saying you're not raising taxes.
So it's a strategy.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's a very careful strategy.
Smoke and mirrors.
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Jeff, thank you very much. So every year there's about 3,000 bills that get submitted through the state legislative session. Right now they're all kind of working through committees and taking amendments, and they're doing everything. Where things get the really, really bad bills, we will not see until the end of session. And they tend to bring those in at the very, very last minute, maybe a day or two before the end of session. They do a process called gut and amend, which essentially means they take language out of one bill, insert whatever language they want in that bill, drop it on our desks for voting within 24 hours. And that's the really bad stuff that goes through towards the end. They save it to the end. And any of these bad bills that we've discussed over the last few years, as you've seen the pattern, they come back. So we might kill one, it comes back. And we kill one, it comes back. So anyways, stay tuned for end of session, which is, I don't know, September 10th, 9th, 10th?
August 31st.
August 31st. Okay, so Senator Benoit, if I may, Ben's dad, started his law enforcement career here in Corona with Bobby's brother, Sam. And he was a CHP officer for 25?
Yeah.
21?
Yeah.
He got elected to the state assembly. He represented Corona in the state assembly, and then he represented us in the state senate after he got elected to the state senate. And then when Roy Wilson passed away on the board of supervisors, Governor Schwarzenegger appointed then Senator John Benoit as a county supervisor. And so he did a lot for our community. And we've got a friend here with Ben that understands Corona, knows what Corona's all about, and we're just thrilled to have him part of it. All right, let's get into it. Ben J. Benoit is a lifelong resident of California. After growing up in the Coachella Valley, Ben moved to the previously unincorporated area of Wildomar in southwest Riverside County in 2006. A small business owner, Ben joined the Wildomar Chamber and the Rotary Club. He served as planning commissioner before he was elected to the city council in 2010. In 2012, Ben was unanimously elected to the Riverside County Mayors to represent all the cities of Riverside County at the South Coast Air Quality Management District. During his 3 terms on city council, he made a priority to serve on financial committees and audit committees. Ben recognizes the importance of ensuring the financial health and accountability of taxpayer-supported entities. As a former mayor, Ben has experience balancing budgets and protecting taxpayer dollars. Ben was responsible for approving city and regional bodies' auditing contracts and reviewing auditing reports. He's also a former business owner who understands how difficult the business climate can be in California. He was just recently elected to serve as Riverside County's Auditor Controller in 2022. He's a strong advocate for residents, taxpayers, and businesses. Ben is committed to leading the Auditor Controller's Office with integrity and ensuring the department provides exceptional customer service. And Ben, one last question.
Sure.
I do this with all the guests. You're stuck on an island for the rest of your life. You could only eat one kind of food, and you could only listen to one band. What would that be? Putting you on the spot.
Yeah, well, it would be pizza.
Pizza.
Anyone noticed I didn't have any, so I'm trying to be good.
Okay.
And probably Aerosmith.
All right. Boston band. Ladies and gentlemen, Ben Benoit.
Thank you. Wow, what an introduction. It seems like it's been a long time since I've been here in Corona, because one of my fondest memories of Corona is actually with my dad and my daughter, and we were knocking door to door for his Senate race in neighborhoods in the area, and that was so much fun. And I remember that distinctly because she picked up a flower and gave it to the gentleman at the door. We got to vote that day. So she was 2 at the time. She's now 19, turning 20 this month. And so it's just been a long family history here in Corona, as Jeff brought up. And just a little bit of that history still lives a little bit in Mom's garage, because I think he did save the first and last. My dad had a habit of saving things. He still had all of his Corona cadet pay stubs. All of them. And about a year before he passed away, he asked me, should I get rid of these? I said, yeah, what else are you hiding in here? And we found a long list of things. But anyhow, we still have a couple of those old pay stubs. It's amazing to see what he earned back then. But I'm in my new job, my new career, and I'm really enjoying it. I really want to tell everyone just how much, if you supported me, thank you. If you didn't, that's great too, because wow, what an amazing opportunity to serve at an entire county. It's been an amazing year and a half. I have learned so much over that year and a half. It's almost daunting now to go back and think where I was 2 years ago when I was still running for this race. But when we talk about some of the threats that Jeff brought up, we're seeing that threat at the county too. It's not just your businesses that are under attack, it's our local governments as well. So our county treasury holds $15 billion as of this morning. Now of that, about 2.4 billion of that is county funds. Most of those are special funds. The general fund has about $430 million in it as of today. Those all sound like really big numbers until you start to get into the numbers that pull the money out of that account regularly. Now, our county payroll this 2 weeks, will be $80 million. So who in here has a payroll bigger than $80 million? Anyone? Now, I have a division, our payroll division, that runs that payroll. They do that, of course, every 2 weeks. They do it on a 2-week cycle because that way they can be there Wednesday when they have to start processing week and get that payroll up at the end of the week, so the pay comes the following week. And they work really hard to get that done. We have about 22,500 paychecks going out this payroll period. And you're thinking, Ben, how do we have that many county employees? Well, think about all of the sheriff's officers that are out there. Think about all the folks that work not only in the county, but also at our county hospital. We have quite a long list of county employees. So they're always hard at work, and we're always making sure to get accurate payroll out to them on time. Now, you might find it interesting that some banks will give you your payroll check a day early. I can guarantee you when we have been 1 day late because our bank was unsuccessful in processing our file, I got a lot of texts and phone calls. I didn't realize how many people had realized that on their pay stub is my name and they're calling me. And the good news about me, if any of you need me, if you Google me, you'll find my phone number. My cell phone number since I started at Wildemar on the Planning Commission has been on the website. It's out there. It's not quite as visible as it was on the City Council website for Wildemar. It's a little bit more hidden on the county, but more or less it is out there. 951-226-5030. I'm a rather reachable person. Now, it has gotten a little harder to get a hold of me, only because I've got a lot going on. This last few months, we've been hard at work on our budget cycle for the county. We've been asking for some extra funds, primarily for my audit division. Now, we have 14 full-time folks working in our audit division. We need more. And the reason why is we used to have about 20 in that division. We were down as low as 9. We had 10 when I took over. We quickly worked on filling those positions because that's an important function our office does. We audit every county department every 2 years. But when I realized that we were doing that every 2 years, when we go back to that same department, we don't necessarily audit the same thing. We're going to audit something different. Occasionally those audits would run into some very questionable things with our county contracts. Our county contracts for a lot of services. This year we have about $1 billion of services our county is contracting with outside vendors. So you can think of anything from printing shirts to anything else that requires an outside contractor vendor, whether that's transporting folks or any of those other issues that go on. All the way up to including some of our contract fire department and other things like that. So those contracts don't get looked into very regularly. I found out that the county of LA has 80 folks dedicated just to this. We need 3. So that was my big push this last couple months to get that through. And I'm really proud to say that I had a lot of support from all the supervisors, especially Bobby's wife. She was great. So we work really well together at the county. I'm proud to say that. Now my department handles both payroll, auditing, all the general accounting for the county. We take care of everything you can think of as far as any checks that get cut. They come through our department. We also handle a large part of the property tax system. So, and I'm also proud to say we have a really good partnership with myself, the assessor, Peter Aldana, and the treasurer, Matt Jennings. We work together regularly on lots of issues, especially our property tax system. But I have about 16 folks dedicated to that in my office as well, because we handle all of the disbursements. So when you folks pay your property taxes, you're sending them to Matt Jennings. After Peter Aldana has assessed your house, my office then disperses those funds. So you might find it interesting to find out where most of those dollars go. About 58 cents in the average city goes to, anyone want to guess? Schools. They get the first cut of the pie, almost 60%. Then the next pie after that is the county gets about 16 cents. Your local city might get about 8 cents. There's special districts, another 10 cents. And we start getting down into the pennies here, folks, but most of the money is going to the schools. Our county takes that piece of it. We fund all those county services. Your cities takes their portion to fund their local districts. A lot of cities don't have their own fire department. They have a fire district. In Karupa and Eastvale, that district gets that, or that city might get that full, about 18 cents, depending on your city. Every city is different. Every neighborhood is a little different. You might be in one school district compared to your neighbors across the street. So how that dollar gets broken up is very different one place to the next. I think I heard the number was about 4,600 different tax rate areas across the county. So as you can imagine, when we have that kind of money in our bank, what are we worried about? We're worried about the state trying to take that money from the cities and from the counties and from schools. We've seen that too. So as we hear about those threats to your businesses, we're also worried about threats to our county dollars, especially if we've saved some of those dollars for not only a rainy day or infrastructure, critical needs that we need for our county. That the state is looking at those funds, and that has happened before. Just like Jeff alluded to, the state will likely do some of those things that they know are illegal and just wait for the cities and the counties to sue. So we're watching that threat as well as we watch the legislation this year. Not only am I worried about, it was mentioned before, those gut and amend bills, but the budget trailer bills have also been notorious for little add-ons that steal monies from cities or counties. My old city of Wildomar lost our VLF fees, our vehicle license fees, overnight on one of those budget bills that came at the end. So it is constantly a threat to our cities and counties that we have to watch out for. I'm happy to say that the few bills we were watching this year that we were opposed to, as far as the auditor controllers for the state Association of Auditors for the state, have gone away, or at least been stopped this year, but we know they'll be back next year. One other piece of legislation that we've been following, some cities are interested in changing the balance of where your sales tax dollars go, whether that's going to where the doorstep where the box gets dropped off, or where the box got shipped from. So think of the warehouse, the city that has to put up with all the air pollution and everything else from the warehouse, versus the doorstep where that penny goes. Right now, most of that, if you only have your 1 cent sales tax that goes to the warehouse, if you have a local sales tax, it goes to the city. Some cities would like to see that divvied up a little differently. So that's a threat not only to cities that have a warehouse, but also to the county. The county actually has quite a few warehouses in the county area. We're also worried about that as well. And our office also distributes those sales tax dollars, along with those property tax dollars. So that's sort of a broad brush of what our county does, or what our county department does. And just really want to thank you. I've really always enjoyed coming to your guys' chamber events, even though they are a little early in the morning sometimes. But to have this event here, and to know that you folks are worried about your legislation just like I am as far as the county, thank you, because it's important to be involved, and I'm sure you all know that. So with that, I'll be happy to take any questions about our county government. And oh, thank you, Bobby. So this is our PAFR, our preferred annual report. The actual ACFR, the annual consolidated financial report, is 400 pages. We boil it down to about 16 pages in here. So if you want to know about our county budget, how much it was last year, about $8 billion. This year will be $9.5 billion. That's in here, as well as a breakdown of that dollar bill for your property tax and where those dollars go. As well as a little information on a lot of our cities and our other entities, as far as all of our county employees, our total employees across the county. That's all in here. So this is a report that our office generates so that the supervisors have this information. My office thinks it's great to get that to them the first week of January. I keep telling them, no, we really need to get to them in December, because this is data from last August. So we're working on moving that up, and the reason being for that is I know as a effective past legislator of a city, it's good to have this information before you go into hopefully even your budget discussions, but more importantly, when you go on your winter break, if you can have this information and start going through, it's a whole lot easier to get through this, rather than trying to do that in January where suddenly everything's going at 100 miles an hour. So this is on the table there. There's about 25 copies. Please take one. If you have any questions, again, give me a call. One other thing our office does, though, is it's also on the back, is the Fraud, Waste, and Abuse Hotline. If you find or hear a county employee or anyone you think that might work for the county is doing something that is not right with our county funds, let us know. And by that I do mean it comes to my office. This can be completely anonymous. And what it does is allows us to look into any issues that come up. So if you think as a county vendor you see something going on that a county department's doing that's not appropriate with any of our county dollars, please let us know. Or if you're a vendor and you see another vendor using county dollars nefariously, let us know. We're looking into that too. So that's our Fraud, Waste, and Abuse Hotline. That's on the back of this. So thank you, Rod. Sure.
How many, you might not know off the top of your head, but how many propositions in the state of California does our county receive funding from?
How many propositions in the state of California does our county receive funding from? I do not know the answer to that. I mean, there's so many propositions. You look back at Proposition 13, and obviously that's hugely affects our office. Prop 10, all these other past propositions, and you could say Prop 13 affects the entire county property tax system. So that right there, we're talking billions, but I don't have an exact number for you.
They're variable amounts that you receive yearly. How do you project those in the budget?
So that's a great question. So our county assessor is the one who, the question was, how do we project the budget for the next year as far as the tax dollars coming in? So as I went over before, a big chunk of our dollars that come into our county are property tax dollars. That's mostly what goes into our general fund. A lot of other dollars come from the state. Those are mostly state programs or other programs. But we mentioned the home health care service program. That's run by the county. The state gives us the money to do that, and we pass it on to those employees. But the county general fund does fluctuate based on your property tax values. Our assessor, just this last week, put out his assessment and his projection for next year of about a 6% increase. And you're thinking, I know our housing prices went up, but 6%, that's a lot. What I'm seeing a lot of, as I see our property tax system quite regularly and look into, a lot of resets. So think of the house in downtown Riverside that someone bought in 1978, maybe just 1980, somewhere in that era, and now they're moving on, and their kids are selling it, or their grandkids are selling it. That house that sold in 1978 that's now worth about probably $800,000 might have a tax basis around $200,000. So last time that grandma paid the property tax bill, it was only a couple $1,000s. Now it's $6,000 or $7,000 or $8,000 easily. And so that is where we're seeing a lot of increase still on our property tax dollars, even though you could sort of say that the market has leveled off a little bit with a little uptick, obviously. But that's how we can then project those dollars, and it's my cash team that then takes that information from the assessor, projects that out for the following year, and gives that to the supervisors so they can make those decisions for the following year.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Yes, Bart.
On the topic of Prop 13, I'm interested in your perspective on the future and the security of Prop 13.
So the question is on the security of Prop 13 and the future of that Prop 13. So one part that's not in my bio, I worked for the California Apartment Association for about 5 years between having my small business and then moving on to this position. And that position allowed me to really get involved with multifamily homeowners as well as single-family homeowners. And one of the biggest threats to that market and to also any commercial market is the splitting of Prop 13. The potential that Sacramento puts it on the ballot to say, hey, you commercial entities, you're going to pay more. That has come up more than a few times. That's, I think, the biggest threat to Prop 13. And if that were to happen, we would see another huge exodus of business in our county. The other hat I used to wear was the Air Quality Management District hat. It amazes me when you look at a satellite map of Phoenix, and you look off the 330, which is the closest ring of their rings of freeways around that city, the amount of warehouses that are already there. There are a lot of businesses that already said, the heck with this, we're gonna move our warehouse out there. If you split the property tax roll, I can almost guarantee one of the biggest entities we have now in our county, which is warehousing, would quickly move out there. And that would hurt our local job economy, our dollar, everything. And so that's my biggest fear, is that unintended consequence of, if this sounds like a good idea, we can get a little money out of businesses this way. Oh boy, if I have to pay 3% on my warehouse here in California, I'd much rather pay the max tax out in Arizona, which I think is still 1.8 or somewhere in that number. And boy, would the exodus happen quick. So yeah, so there's definitely a threat there, and it's definitely something to watch out for.
What's the likelihood that you're gonna see some 11th hour budget bills come in that could possibly pull funding back from the counties to offset the governor's shortfall?
When I look, the question is, are we going to see an 11th hour potential hit to our local budget going back to the state this year? When I look back at the history of when that's happened, it's usually when the state's running into their second year is when they really start pulling all the plugs. But as we talked about this morning, this budget's already so far gone, I could potentially see that this year. And that's why we're watching for it. We contract with HDL, they track all of our sales tax dollars. We work with a couple of the contractors. It's already on their radar. Hey, as soon as you see any of that, please let us know so we can get, and then tell us. I'm already asking for some of the formulas of what that might look like through HDL, so I can give those numbers to our executive office and therefore to the supervisors. So now we are tracking that. It would not surprise me. Let me put it that way. Yep.
Do federal interest rates have much of an impact on the county budget and projections?
The question is, do federal interest rates have an impact on our budget? Yeah, surprisingly in a good way. Our county treasury actually was able to generate about 4.5 to 5 cents on the dollar, just like everyone else that has put their money into a good interest-bearing account that didn't keep their money in Chase, like I probably shouldn't have this last year. No, that has been a positive note for our county treasury. We're actually generating quite a good income stream there. But what it's causing is some entities that have a lot of money in the county treasury, think IEHP, their finance director said, oh, I'll hold on to these dollars as long as I can before I pay the county hospital, which is bleeding money. So it's caused a little bit of a rift too, where we're seeing county departments, or not just county departments, but these quasi-government agencies that are these other entities, JPAs, that have money in our treasury, are holding on to it as long as they can before they send it to the entity that's owed. So a lot of renegotiation of contracts is happening. You say, okay, I was really nice to you when I gave you net 60, let's make that net 10. Because we can't wait for the county medical system to pay its bills. And in the meantime, our treasurer, when you have a negative account, which unfortunately our hospital's been negative a couple times this year, is charging that county hospital an interest rate because they have to make up for the fact that they're losing money, allowing them to loan from the county pool that way. So that's one good news about the county pool as a whole. When you have the money in the county pool, we have some automatic, especially for those county entities that are directly attached to the county, including our own general fund. If we go negative for a couple days, it's okay. We pull from one of those other $2.4 billion of transferable assets, not the total 15, because there's a lot of that schools, but we can transfer that money automatically that way. So we cover each other that way, so that you don't get open the newspaper and say, oh, Corona School District ran out of money. No, if it's just to cover them for one day, we're good with that. You got another question?
Yeah.
Sparked another one, I could tell.
Yeah, well, I can follow that one. I'm just really interested, but the higher interest rates, does it make it more difficult to do things like issue debt, like issue bonds for a building and things
Sure.
like that?
So I wish we could say we have enough cash that when you guys pay your property tax bills, it gets us through the whole year. But just the same way you guys probably don't like it that we only bill you twice a year, but it's sort of December and April, it seems weird out to one part of the year. Yeah, we get short on cash around October, November. And so what we do is we actually go out to to New York City and we borrow about, this year will be 435 million to cover that shortfall during that time. One thing our executive office did this last year, we're going to continue to do it. There were some folks in the county that would not let this happen and refused to do it the last 5 years. He's no longer with us. That we actually take that money when we first borrow it and immediately put it into an interest-bearing account and generate income off of it and then use it as we need it. So in other words, yeah, we're going to borrow it about, I think the percentage we're borrowing it is like 4.25%, but we're able to actually earn back about 5 and then use that money as we need it. So we're doing everything we can to make sure that when we do borrow dollars, we're actually not having to pay as much for it and work the system as best we can that way. So it's that's been helpful, but also again can cause issues because we are paying a higher debt service on that. So.
Great question.
Yep.
Any other questions? Dean?
Dean?
Ben, the county just gave itself a pay raise.
Yes.
How many percent was that? Did it apply to everyone in the county? And then what would that put the supervisors pay at?
This is the question on the pay raises that went out to the, where did it go in the county? Who got the pay raises and for how much? Great question. This affects me personally. So, yes, my own position as well as the treasurers, the assessors, the sheriff and the DA, none of those positions have been adjusted. And when you go back and read the news stories, one of the people that voted for it, which I was very proud of, was my father. To adjust it back then to about $195,000. If you did CPI on just that number, the last 10 years, so back in 2014 when that happened, we did about 270. They did up all 5 of those offices. Again, my office, 195, went to 247. The supervisor's pay also went up based on their interesting formula that we came up with to attach it to the number 2s. I can't remember the exact number that it went to, but it's around 230, I think, if I remember correctly. But I will say this is your 10 most professional people that are in the county serving you on a regular basis. The fact that a lot of us have not taken those positions and not been pay raised in quite some time means that almost all of those folks, especially on the 5 countywide electeds, had number 2s and some number 3s making more than them, just based on, again, those positions that were below them had continued to get CPI and other regular raises throughout the county. So my number 2 was making north of 214, and I was at 195, so that didn't seem right. But here's why that's really important. I want everyone in my office to want my job. I think a real reason why my predecessor was able to languish there and never run unopposed is they all were, well, it's not really worth it. I hope that people in my office want my job. People should want the job of their boss. If your boss is making less than you, do you want their job? You want the extra heartache? You want the extra headache? You want the extra go speak in front of the public? Which, by the way, most of my office does not like this part at all. They hate this part. But that's the thing to me is not about my take home. It's about making sure they know that at the end of their runway, they have the opportunity to serve. They could make as much money as I do today, plus CVI, because that number continues to move, and we all know that. Now, yes, it's a rather large expense, but in the grand scheme of our $9.5 billion budget, it's a rounding error. So it really did not make a huge change for the county. Just my 2 cents on that, but good question. And yes, it's been in the paper quite a bit lately.
And with the raise, it's now 3 cents. So,
What's that?
Your 2 cents.
My 2 cents is now 3 cents. Well,
We have
2.65.
time for one more question, if anyone has one. Then we'll get into the field reps' comments. Let's give Ben a round of applause.
We're gonna do this
Go
too.
ahead, go ahead.
So can we have the field reps make their way on up to the front over here by Ben? So I want to thank all of you guys for coming today. Before you leave though, make sure that you get one of these booklets that Ben has prepared. He was sharing with me the frustration. The data is from August. We're now in June, the middle of June, so the new data will be ready shortly, but it takes a while for them to get it printed. Chet?
Yes.
All right, hello everybody. Good to see everyone again. Jet Benavides representing Congressman Ken Calvert. We'll just dive right in. So again, as all of you well know by now, Congressman Calvert is chairman of the Defense Appropriations Subcommittee. So on June 5th, Congressman Calvert voted along with the majority of the House of Representatives to approve the fiscal year 2025 Military Construction and Veteran Affairs Appropriations Bill. The bill would include just a few points: junior enlisted service members with a 19.5% pay raise, investments to build new and improve existing housing for service members in child development centers, expand programs that will provide employment to support military spouses. It prioritizes veteran healthcare programs, benefits, and VA programs. And lastly, to wrap that up, it continues to support the National Guard's counter-drug programs to enhance the Department of Defense's ability to counter China's harmful incursions into our homeland, combating the flow of fentanyl and other illegal drugs often coming through the southern border. Also, we have the 2025 community project funding request that will move to full committee markup shortly. This was, Congressman Calvert goes around throughout the entire district, meets with individual cities throughout the district, gets their funding requests, and then they bring those to committee markup. So some of those that you may be familiar with or that may affect us directly is the Corona Real-Time Information Center project. This will provide the city of Corona with improved policing technology and will be deployed to meet the security needs of the day appropriately. Corona Trails Improvement Project as well. This would fund improvements, amenities, and new trails in the city of Corona, along with the interface with Cleveland National Forest. We also have, to wrap some of that up, we have the 15 Freeway Southern Extension Project as well. All right, and then just to kind of summarize and wrap everything up here, yesterday the congressman voted to pass the No Hidden Fees Act, bipartisan legislation introduced by our friend Congresswoman Young Kim, who actually represents a very small portion of Corona as well. It will require hotels and other places of short-term lodging to include each mandatory fee when displaying or advertising the price for a reservation. Yes. So, as always, everybody, thank you. Any specific questions, never hesitate to reach out to the office or see me after. So, thank you all so much.
Howdy folks, again my name is Braxton with Senator Kelly Ciardo's office. Just a couple of bill updates for you all. So just to go over briefly in summary, we had about 20 bills that were put forward this legislative session. 11 of those bills have currently gained the failed status where they're being died in committee or they're no longer moving forward in the legislature. But that does mean we have 9 bills that we have that have gone forward into the assembly, so I'll be able to give you some quick updates on those. The SB 73, which is the Veterans Hiring Preference Bill, is in the Assembly Judiciary Committee. The SB 916, CalVet Fee Waiver Bill, is in the Assembly Higher Education Committee. And the Purple Star Schools Codification Senate Bill 920 is in the Assembly Education Committee. Going on to transportation, we have SB 936, the Caltrans Consideration of Fatalities Bill, is in the Assembly Transportation Committee. SB 947, the Caltrans, oh no, not that one, one's failed. Next page, right. Again, since we are a Senate office, the fact that the bills are into the Assembly means that it has passed from the Senate and moved over to the other House. So that's forward progress on the bill, which is good. So the Senate Bill 978, which is the Machine Readable Laws Bill, is in the Assembly Governmental Organizational Committee. The SB 1034 State of Emergency Public Record Extension Bill is in the Assembly Appropriations Committee, as well as the Senate Bill 1044 Bingo Law Tied to Inflation Bill. Those are both in the Assembly Appropriations Committee. Both of these bills are now, oh no, sorry, I'm misreading that. In the Assembly Revenue and Taxation Committee is Senate Bill 230, which is a deduction for HSA contributions. And then the last 2 bills I can give an update for, they've moved a little bit further along into the process, so they've passed the Assembly and are now actually made their way back to the Senate for enrolling and engrossing. This is a process where the bills are proofread and made sure that they're in proper legalese to be inserted and to be properly chaptered into the state legislature. Sorry, I'm blanking on the words here. But, those 2 bills are SB 1122, the Law Enforcement Degree Requirement Bill, which modifies existing law to allow Academy cadets to fulfill their degree requirements while they're in or shortly after the Academy, instead of requiring it to be completed before. And we also have Senate Bill 1096, the Honest Mail Transparency Bill, which requires all physical mail solicitations to be labeled on the outside of the envelope, clearly stating it is a solicitation and the recipient is not required to pay or take any other action. So both of those bills are going to be enrolled and engrossed by the Senate and will be making their way to the governor's desk very soon. That's it for me. Any other questions, please feel free to reach out to our office. Thank you very much.
Cool, everyone. As I mentioned earlier, my name is Casey Deaver, and I'm here on behalf of Assemblyman Bill Saley's office. Just got a quick things to go over. It's mostly just revolving around our concerns with the budget. As Jeff mentioned earlier, there's a lot of issues in California, and that includes California having one of the highest unemployment rates in the state, as well as no other state has lost more jobs in the beginning of 3 months of 2024 than California. So obviously there's major concerns already happening, and what are we doing with that? We're doing things like tax increases over the next 4 years for like health care on the elderly or research on the high tech, things like that. So that's not gonna help. That's not gonna continue to help. So that's continued issues, as well as the continued issues around cutting on funding for law enforcement. And another thing that's kind of an issue already, even in our county, is the courts not having a lot of funding, and there's like over $97 million in cuts in that. So there's a lot of things that they are working on cutting that is a major issue here in our community, and it's not making any of our communities any safer as that. But we're going to spend money on other things that aren't super helpful. Like we're going to spend $700 million in new legislative offices in the Capitol. So that's great use of the budget funding. And then kind of continuing on our concerns in related to the business community is everything kind of around retail theft. So it's all of these bills that have been brought forward. There was about 14 of them on their actions to try to make it a little bit better. But now there's concerns about adding, it's been dubbed like poison pills, but because they're adding it if the ballot measure goes through that deals with it, it would revoke a lot of these things. So we're trying to figure out, okay, why are you bringing these things forward? We have a lot of concerns, and we appreciate the effort, including a couple of bills deal with aggregating it, because right now it's $950, but If you take from 950 here, you take from 950 there. Oh well. So there's a couple things like that we're moving forward, but unfortunately, they're looking at cutting it. So that's one of our major concerns that we're working on. So hopefully there's been discussions about maybe making it's been made a lot of news, which is good. It makes things change. But I know it's major affecting our business community. So that's something that is focused on, and we're going to continue to do so. So I know I don't always bring good news, but I at least want to make sure that you're informed about what's going on in the legislature. So thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Any questions before we wrap up? Thank you guys for those reports. You guys are doing all the hard work for the offices out there. And I know in my case, I really appreciated my field reps because they were my face out in the community. So you have now experienced the Committee for Political Geeks and Nerds. And if anybody doesn't have any questions, August 14th, Kevin Bash, the council member from City of Norco, who has been tremendously supportive of us and our efforts and has done an amazing job. So August 14th, right
He'll
here.
be our speaker.
We'll be our featured speaker.
And then in October, you want to touch on that?
Here, you do it.
Okay, let me just do it from here. So on October 9th, we've got a candidates forum. I know many of you have been asking, and what we're looking at is what impacts us the most, and that's the local level. So for Corona and Norco City Council, we are going to host that right here as well. We're going to do the school board for Corona Norco Unified School District. So that candidates forum will be here on October 9th, 11:30 in the morning. We'll start at 11:45. We'll go just at least till 1 o'clock, but maybe till 1:30. That's why we advertise it 11:30 to 1:30. So as we wrap up now, I just want to again thank Jeff Miller for jumping in and taking this chairmanship and doing this. These meetings are real important. I want to also thank Barb with Vulcan for being the sponsor today. If anyone is interested in perhaps being a sponsor of a future one, please see me or Anthony. And I want to thank my team that make everything work. So thank you, and Ben, thank you.
And thank you, Ben, our auditor controller. Thank you very much. Meeting adjourned.